Now this is a little job I'm going to do. It might be of interest to anyone out there. I'm going to sharpen a slitting saw, which I imagine lots of home workshops use. They're one of the most useful and versatile cutters there is. Now before I grind one of these slitting saws, I like to just make sure that everything's on centre line to start with. Now I have a scribe line on my workhead, and I know that if I set this old scribe at a height gauge to that scribe line, I know everything's on centre line. Then it's important if you want to do the backing off correctly, although it's not really essential. It's not critical. You can grind them by eye. Now I'm using an adjustable tooth rest here, and again this is not essential, but it does help to raise and lower the blade, the teeth on the blade. I normally use a fixed tooth rest made out of old saw blades, and they work really well. But this is not essential. Now what I like to do is get my old height gauge, old scriber and height gauge, and make sure that the tooth rest is also on centre line. Then everything's all parallel and levelled. Of course, when the cutter's placed on the tooth rest between these centres, I can alter the height of the tooth rest by the micrometer dial on the base of this adjustable spring-loaded tooth rest. Not essential really. As I say, you can use a piece of fixed old saw blade on a piece of rod. It'll serve quite well. But this is just something I tend to use. What we're going to do is use the diameter of the cup wheel to back off the teeth. You can also use the front face of the cup wheel, which is actually the ideal way for when you're doing fine saw blades. They're very, very tricky to grind these, and you can't put a secondary on doing this method I'm going to show now. I will show the other way, using the front face of a cup wheel, which is probably really the best way to do them. You can also grind these by gashing the teeth. That's another method what I sometimes use, and that's an interesting way of doing them. Now what you really do need to do before you start grinding any thin fine tooth slitting saws is to make sure that they're running true, or as near as damn it. You can never get them to run perfectly true, but you really need to get them as true as you can. It makes it easier to grind them, and they cut better as well that way when they're reground. Now you can see where I've ground away the blade there. Now the reason for this is that if it wasn't ground away, the tooth which is resting on top there, the tooth below would just tend to push it away, so you won't be able to index properly. You really do need to grind it away. Now you don't have to have a spring-loaded type of holder like I'm using. You can use a piece of saw blade fixed onto a piece of rod, like I've shown in previous videos. Now the only problem with a fixed blade is that to raise or lower the tooth, you've got to just undo the holder, what the blade's fixed to, and just manually move it up and down. A little bit awkward that way, but I've used that method quite a lot, and it works quite well. Now with this adjustable tooth rest, it means I can just use the micrometer dial on the base of this holder, and lower it to the amount of clearance I need. It's graduated in thous, but if you just use a fixed toothbrush without any alteration, as long as everything's on the centre line, all you need to do is just raise the wheel, and you're supposed to use the theoretical calculation that multiply the diameter of the wheel by the relief angle in inches, and then multiply that result by 0.087. It'll give you the correct clearance, but it doesn't always work, doesn't that, with fine blades like this. You're best really getting it lined up, make sure it's on centre line, and raise the wheel until it just clears the tooth above, and then grind it, and you'll find that this will give it'll give you enough clearance. It won't rub or anything. It's nearly impossible to put a secondary on fine blades like this. You can do it, but it's a different technique. Well, from past experience of grinding these slitting saws, these fine tooth ones, I know it's approximately 20 thou I need to lower this tooth rest to get a reasonable angle of clearance. It's, as I said before, it's just a little bit of trial and error. You lower it down as much as you can until the tooth above just clears the wheel. You don't want it catching it, otherwise it'll just ruin the tooth above, which will be next in line later on for grinding. As I've mentioned, if you haven't got an adjustable tooth rest, just raise the wheel until it matches the amount of backing off on the cutter that's already been previously ground. By the way, you can grind these saw blades by using the front of the cup wheel. It just means swinging the head round 90 degrees and a different setup, which I will show the method that I use. Now I'm just doing a trial first cut, and all these sparks are from the tooth rest. You can't avoid it really. You always end up catching through tooth rest. But once that's done, it's okay for the rest of the grind. It just sort of forms a bit of clearance. I'll just go around. I'll just mark a couple of areas, and then it's just a matter of indexing round and grinding the blade. I caught the blade there again. Now I shall just go around and clean up the teeth. I'm only taking a tiny amount off, that's all that's needed. Well, that's the last tooth now done, and I shall just make sure that there is enough clearance, and there you can see the amount that's been taken off. There will be enough clearance on that, and this cutter will stand quite a few more regrinds before it needs regashing. And there you can see the shape of the tooth rest, and the part where the wheel has just caught it a little bit, which is normal. Well, that's the saw blade ground. I only needed to take a small amount off, and it doesn't need a secondary. In fact, it'll stand quite a few regrinds before a secondary is needed. But when it does come to that point, it will have to be the cup wheel which will have to be used. It's impossible with the using the method I've just done with the straight edge of the wheel. Now the reason is that if you lower or raise the wheel head to try and get a secondary on a fine saw blade like this, you'll just catch the tooth above, and really the only way to grind these is to use a cup wheel, and that way you'll get your clearance. But it is a bit of a technique to put a secondary on one of these, and it's the only way you can do it is I say using a cup wheel. I will try and show that. Well, I'm now just checking the fall off to just confirm the amount of clearance I've got. Difficult to check on these fine teeth, but it's falling away enough on the clock there to indicate that the clearance is approximately as it should be. You might be better actually buying the cheap imports instead of regrinding these type of blades. The only reason I regrind these is because they're made by Summit. It's a very high quality manufacturer in its time, and the blades are really good quality. But the imports will probably do just the job just as well, and that's the only real reason I keep these. Now this is the type of spring-loaded adjustable tooth rest I use sometimes. Don't use it a lot, but it does come in handy for raising or lowering the cutter. It's simple. It's a simple design. It's just a fine thread, 40 threads per inch. I made this quite a while back, and it's been very useful for certain jobs. You just need that little bit of fine adjustment on certain cutters, but usually the fixed blade one works quite well, and that's what I use most of the time really. Now I've set up for doing a different cutter here and using the front of the cup wheel instead of the straight wheel. It's just a matter really of making sure everything's again on centre line, and using this old gauge what I have, I make sure that everything's lined up. Now to get the actual clearance doing it this method, you don't raise and lower the wheel because it won't make any difference. What you have to do is to lower the tooth rest, and this is where the adjustable tooth rest comes in. But if you haven't got one, the best thing to do really is to make sure, as I say, it's on centre line. Get the tooth rest under the tooth, and then just use a rule or a dial indicator on the wheel head. Now with this way using a cup wheel, you don't measure the diameter of the cup wheel, you measure the diameter of the cutter and multiply that by the relief angle in inches, and then multiply that result by 0.0087. Now this cutter's 3 inches in diameter, and the angle I'm giving this time is 7 degrees, and this works out at 0.187, 3/16. So it's just a matter of loading the tooth rest 3/16. Just make sure that the tooth is on centre line and lower the tooth rest 3/16. Just use a ruler if you haven't got an adjustable tooth rest like I was showing. Also, it's important just to lower the wheel head so it clears the tooth above, like I'm just showing there. If you don't, there's a danger of just catching the tooth above. Now if I needed to put a secondary clearance on this, what I do is just lower the tooth to the correct position, and then the cup wheel needs lowering down so that it clears the tooth above. You've got to be careful when you do a secondary clearance. It's the cup wheel top of the cup wheel has got to clear the tooth above, and it means just lowering the wheel head until it just passes under the tooth above. On a coarse tooth cutter it doesn't matter as much, because you'll have plenty of clearance, but when you're doing saws, slitting saws, you don't have a right lot of clearance, so you've got to make sure that the top of the wheel clears the tooth above the one what you're going to put the secondary on. Now I can't really put a secondary on this particular cutter if I wanted to, because I can't get my wheel head lower to clear the tooth above. When I first built this cutter grinder, it was only intended to grind slot drills and end mills, so height of the centres didn't matter too much, but it needs rectifying, and these centres really need to be at least 1.5 to 2 inches higher, so that's a job that needs rectifying. And by raising the centres it would enable me to put the secondary on and have plenty of clearance. You can actually move the wheel head round slightly, so it gives a little bit more clearance to the tooth above, but even so there's still a chance that you're going to foul the tooth above. Now I'm just going to make a small mark on the first tooth I'm going to grind, and I'll check it for clearance. Well, the fall off there indicates approximately 7 degrees, so that will do. I'll just now finish grinding the rest of the teeth. I've now remarked the first tooth, and I use that as a starting point. Well, that's a small 3-inch slitting saw ground. Looking at it, it looks okay. Probably doesn't need a secondary on, but as I mentioned, I can't lower my wheel head down. What I could do, if need be, is put the saw in my small work head and use that. That would do it. It'd be high enough. But I really do need to get my centres sorted out, and that will enable me then to do the proper secondary grinding if need be. It's always tricky, as I mentioned, with slitting saws. Ordinary side and face cutters, it's no problem, but when you get to fine saw blades, it can be a real problem. These are okay. This particular one isn't too bad. Well, as I mentioned before, it's possible that it's cheaper to buy these from these Chinese sites and just use them when they get blunt, throw them away. But I just like to keep them reground, especially these quality blades made by Summit. But it's an interesting little job grinding these, and I think it's well worth the effort. You just got to use a little bit of care. Well, I am planning to do some more tool and cutter videos, hopefully in the near future, and the next one will be showing how to regrind one of the awkward type, the staggered tooth, the side and face cutters. These can be a bit of a puzzle if you've never ever ground one before, so that hopefully will be the next tool and cutter grinding video in the near future. Well, I hope you found this video of use and of interest, and once again, thank you for watching.